Elise came to me with Lyme disease. And it just so happened that as she was finishing up the treatment, she got pregnant. And we followed her with the pregnancy, and she was doing fine initially, and all of a sudden she miscarried.
2 weeks later, the OB came back and said, you were right, it was Lyme disease. The baby was infected, the fetus and the placenta were infected, Elise, and concluded that that's what took the life of this baby at 18 weeks.
In utero, fetal transmission of Lyme disease to a fetus is something that has been of concern to patients and physicians for many years. We've looked carefully at that. There have been numerous studies. There has not been one documented case of congenital Lyme disease.
Well, that's nonsense. Plain and simple. And it's not only nonsense, there's significant peer-reviewed articles showing transmission transplacentally and at autopsies. It's just nonsense. How could that not be? It doesn't even stand up physiologically. It makes no sense.
You can't imagine this. How could you? You just can't.
Hi, my name is Jared. Before my Lyme disease got so bad, I was able to talk. Now I have to use a communication device.
I wasn't a real healthy pregnant mom with him. Well, in retrospect, I realized that I was sick. I had Lyme disease, and I did not realize that that's what was going on. I knew something wasn't right from the time he was born. I knew it. I kept getting poo-pooed by the doctors. They said, just let him be and it'll all work out. And it didn't work out.
Ready? Okay.
At age 6, we got the news that he had brain damage. And they didn't really know why. They thought it was something that happened in utero and that the damage was done, and then we were to just keep moving forward. But he didn't move forward. He kept moving backwards.
Get you a bend, bud.
Lyme disease happened to be everywhere around us by then. It was as if every neighbor was coming down with it, and it was like hitting me from every direction, as if, you know, wake up, dummy, you're not paying attention. You know, there's Lyme disease everywhere. There's a gentleman who lives right up on the hill up here, and his previous wife passed away. She had Lyme disease, and now he's remarried, and his new wife has Lyme disease.
This man here was very ill from Lyme disease. In the house over here to your right, those people had it, and same with the lady that lives here. She has it.
I put a lot of faith in the doctors. I believe them. I want to just shake them and say, how many more kids are you going to let go untreated because you're not recognizing what's happening here?
I've never seen a child who's had late-stage neurologic Lyme disease. We just don't see late neurologic disease in children.
The Infectious Diseases Society of America just published their Lyme disease diagnosis and treatment guidelines, and it's been a huge disaster for the Lyme disease community. They say that Lyme is easy to treat and easy to cure. They're saying that 2 weeks typically will cure most cases of Lyme. And they say that chronic Lyme doesn't exist. If people have symptoms beyond 1 2 to 4 week dose of antibiotics, they have something else, and they send them to a psychiatrist or give them some pain meds or some steroids and send them away.
If you look at the new IDSA guidelines, it's a very threatening document. It's very restrictive. So it almost was designed with a purpose in mind to restrict the treatment of Lyme.
A handful of people are pretty much the gatekeepers for information about this disease. Out of 400 references that they posted at the back of the guidelines, half of them were based on articles that the panelists or people in their labs had actually written. So it's not like they went through and looked at the whole body of Lyme research to come up with the best recommendations. They looked at a small group of articles, about half of which were written by themselves.
These guidelines are based on the best scientific evidence that from more than 25 years of study.
It completely ignores a worldwide body of literature that is in contradiction to what they're saying.
We're not going to ignore good science, but the science isn't there.
We had begun deliberations, and we were going to go over the late and chronic stage. We never got to discuss late and chronic Lyme disease. There seemed to be pressure from the IDSA to put out something, even though we couldn't agree. So what happened was, Dr. Wormser did take over the chairmanship on the guidelines for Lyme disease, and we never met again. We just said, here are the guidelines, and you can sign them and agree or not.
They're written in almost legalese terms, like this can be a document used in court cases, maybe against physicians, or maybe for insurance companies to justify cutting off treatment to their patients because these are the guidelines.
I mean, it's frustrating to hear doctor after doctor after doctor say either A, Lyme doesn't exist, or Lyme doesn't do this, or, you know, well, what you're experiencing isn't Lyme. It's almost like they've been trained or programmed that this is what they're supposed to say.
It's really madness. You know, there's something wrong. I don't hear it in any other disease, never heard it in my life. So there's something funny. I don't know what that something funny is.
Attorney General Blumenthal of Connecticut has taken the historic move of starting an investigation into the panel members who wrote the Infectious Diseases Society of America Lyme treatment guidelines. He believes that they have conflicts that may be corrupting their advice.
Our investigation concerns whether the antitrust laws have been violated, purposefully or not, by these guidelines. They may restrict consumer choice with tremendous implications, not only for patient care, but also the economics of insurance coverage.
Ideally, authors of medical guidelines should have no financial conflicts when they make their recommendations. But if you look at the current IDSA guidelines authors, 6 of 14 of them or their universities hold patents associated with Lyme disease or its co-infections. 4 of the 14 have received funding from Lyme or co-infection test kit manufacturers. 4 have been paid by insurance companies to write Lyme policy guidelines or serve as consultants in legal cases. And 9 of the 14 authors or their universities have received money from Lyme disease vaccine manufacturers.
The fact that 9 out of 14 authors have a direct conflict of interest with somebody who's involved in manufacturing products for any aspect of the disease is completely outrageous. The Infectious Disease Society of America should establish a hard and fast rule that the people who serve on guideline writing committees not have any ties to any manufacturer that has a stake in the outcome of those guidelines. Period. End of story.
There are a lot of people in the academic community, I think, that know these people are wrong, but no one will speak up. So, you know, at what point will people say the emperor has no clothes? You know, when will the voice of the people finally reach a level where the truth will come out? I mean, I think the truth will eventually come out, but how many more people are going to suffer before the truth comes out?
As citizens, we ought to be astonished and